Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe. If you dare.
Then it escalated to shaving the cats, cutting off their whiskers, and eventually things like me catching her bouncing on the cat till it shit itself from the pressure. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. Siblings of sociopaths or narcissists, when did you realize your sibling wasn't normal?
Number 1.
My oldest sister. I'm the youngest of 3 girls and we grew up fairly poor, so both parents were out of home a lot working to give us the basics. Because of this, my oldest sister looked after us. My earliest memories involved me running through the kitchen in a diaper, feeling so scared trying to get away from her. Anything and everything set her off. If attention was not 100% on her, she would flip out, scratching, kicking, hair pulling. My parents were pretty oblivious to all this, or more, my dad was also unstable, BPD, who frequently went off meds, and my mum was too emotionally abused to do anything to help. She had to have presents on everyone else's birthday, had to have the same presents as everyone else on Christmas, or better ones. As I was 4 years younger, I was much smaller than her and easy to catch. From my toddler years to 16, I had crescent scars all over my arms and ankles because she would dig her nails into my skin drawing blood. The very first time it clicked in my head that no one would ever help and she could manipulate her way out of everything is when she stabbed me in the shoulder with a pen. I was about 8 years old. She had yanked out a chunk of my hair, so I told her to F off. The look on her face was horrifying because she looked so happy because my dad had been sleeping and woke up to me swearing, which was strictly not allowed. She knew I was going to be in trouble, so she grabbed the pen off the table and stabbed me, then yanked it back out. I ran upstairs to get away from my dad, which was a whole different scary experience, and he wouldn't believe that she had hurt me. I came downstairs a few hours later when he allowed it, with blood all over my shirt. My aunt was staying with us and saw it, pointed it out to my dad, and they still believed my sister hadn't done it. I gave up all hope for help after that. That turned into 8 years of her scarring any exposed skin, pulling out my hair, cornering me and screaming about how disgusting I was, taking every moment to remind me I was fat. She has been anorexic/bulimic most of her teens and adult life, throwing things at me, telling me men will only like me because they're chubby chasers, etc. I am more of an extrovert than most of my family, so I always had a lot of friends and boyfriends in elementary school and then actual boyfriends in high school. When she went away to university, my mother thought it would be a great idea for me to visit her there. A whole weekend being alone in her dorm with her. She spent the first day reminding me how disgusting I was, then acted all nice until the evening. She wanted me to watch West Side Story. I think it's the one with the opening scene of the 2 gangs finger snapping down the street. Me being 16 thought it was funny, so I laughed. Wrong move. She started screaming, threw out all the food, cornered me, and let me know how no one in my life actually likes me and they're all just putting up with me because they don't know any better. I'll only ever be in abusive relationships. I don't deserve anything better than that. I'll always be fat and disgusting, etc., etc. Then she kicked me out and made our mother pick me up a day early. Mid-year she was home, and in a rare moment of civility she wanted to talk. She asked me how you're supposed to feel sorry for other people. As in, how do you feel empathy? She couldn't figure it out when her profs talked about it. I carefully got out of that conversation. Later that day, after she'd done her usual "you're fat and disgusting" rant, I decided to turn my back on her and not engage. She picked up a textbook and hit me as hard she could over the head with it, yanked me by the back of my head and pushed me in the cupboards, to let me know you're not allowed to ignore me. I have not spoken to her since that day. I'm now 26 and she's 30. She's still living off my mother and has 0 social skills. The last time I saw her, she had drank a bottle of wine on Christmas Eve 2011 and she just laid on the living room floor for the day. She's pulled a knife on her other sister. She's been evicted for trashing apartments that are in my mother's name, had so many pets die unexplainably, expects to be showered with gifts and attention by everyone around her. She will get angry if family are paying more attention to children than they are to her. She still has to refer to her mother as mommy and in that high-pitched "my-you-and-me" voice. She can't hold any platonic relationship, has never had a romantic one, and she still hates me viciously for being able to have relationships. I will not be surprised if she ends up killing someone. She is the spitting image of our father in personality. She lives in another province from me, is still in school, and my mother is smart enough to never let her know where I live. Those close to me know who/how she is and know not to give any information. Thanks for that, I didn't know I needed it.
Number 2.
I realized my younger sister wasn't okay when from a very early age would abuse our pets. It started off with things that my mother played off as being accidental because of her age, like pulling the cat's tail, or pouring harmful things into all the fish bowls. Then it escalated to shaving the cats, cutting off their whiskers, and eventually things like me catching her bouncing on the cat till it shit itself from the pressure. Then I think my mom finally got her attention when she cut the cat's ear off. Skeptical, she did other things too, like punching herself and scratching herself, pulling her own hair during tantrums. Kids still not right even now in their teens.
Number 3.
My older brother isn't just a sociopath, he's a psychopath. Even my parents are surprised he isn't in jail for murder yet. He's been evil as long as I can remember. Beat us all to pulps as kids for imagined slights against him, and actually knocked my poor disabled dad out on one occasion. He's been arrested a bunch of times, and even after the most recent time a police officer he had weapons bought from China stopped at customs, called my mom a few days later and asked if they knew he may have some mental issues. She said yes, she knew, but she doesn't believe anyone would have the balls to tell him that. The police officer agreed. His favorite pastime recently is walking the streets with a signal jammer while people are trying to make calls or using it outside the fire/police station. Finds it hilarious. He's a effing asshole. He was banned from a local grocery store for threatening a staff member for apparently looking at him. That's not even the tip of the iceberg of what that prick has done to our family.
Number 4.
I realized my sister wasn't normal and super narcissistic when everything about my wedding had to revolve around her. She made life a living hell on earth. My friends were so appalled at her behavior, I finally had to take a step back and realize her narcissistic behavior was ruining celebratory events. If she didn't get her way, the slew of gut-wrenching insults came my way. We're about 3.5 years apart and I am the oldest, she is the middle child. She has no empathy, she never apologizes, just says the worst things ever and moves on like I deserved her wrath. She has the temper of a 5-year-old, blows up all the time, and then makes everyone around her feel sorry for her. Now that I'm pregnant, it's only gotten worse. I've had to remove her from my life as it's one of the most toxic relationships I've ever experienced. But that's when I first realized that she may be a narcissist. Edit, seems like a lot of people can relate. I just want to clarify, I don't know for certain my sister is a narcissist, but she had a lot of the qualities found in the latest DSM. I am not a licensed clinician and am aware that it is a hard thing to diagnose, and that's what I said, that she may be a narcissist. At the end of the day, I just have to create boundaries that keep me sane.
Number 5.
Where to begin? I think mostly, long before our parents noticed, unfortunately. Either because parents sometimes insist on being blind to the defects of their own children in order to avoid the pain, or because they both worked long hours and so I stayed alone with my younger brother a lot to take care of him. One day I came back from my after-school job, and saw him standing above a big fire he'd lit in our front yard. I asked him politely and calmly to put it out, since I was horrified but also concerned about the garden in the yard and my family's rose bushes, the last remaining plant from my grandfather. He didn't say anything, but minutes later he came after me up the stairs and physically attacked me, the first major incident in a long line of physical altercations, with myself and the rest of our family. Then came the knife-throwing incident, the kicking our 60-year-old father in the stomach incident, the running away and threatening suicide, and the ultimate unveiling of his paranoid delusion. People are out to break into the house and poison him and the family dog, etc. Our parents internalized our grim family reality only much, much later. He is in fact the reason I first left home, since even sleeping with a lock on my door didn't help me feel safe around him. I still worry for my parents, like one day I'm going to get that awful phone call that he did something to them.
Number 6.
She's 2 years older than me. She did stuff like, when I was 3 she convinced me to pile as many blankets as we could on our sleeping little brother until our mom got back. I'll never forget my mom's reaction when I excitedly told her about our hilarious prank. Luckily he was okay. When I was about 7, a daring little bro climbed high up a tall evergreen tree on our property and was hanging on a branch. He wasn't sure how to get down and I tried convincing him to hang on while I got our parents. My sister started shaking the tree and yelling, "Fall! Fall! Fall!" He fell, yelling out on his way down and landed flat on his back. My sister ran away and my brother was unconscious for several of the most terrifying seconds of my life. Luckily he looked around and was fine. I got back and was bewildered to find out my sister hadn't told anyone, since I thought she must have ran to ask for help. There were a ton of things. She was horrible to us, most often to me because I'm also female, our whole childhoods, and enjoyed causing me as much suffering, helplessness and anger as she could to vent her own frustrations, but those are the only 2 times I look back and go, wow, she actually wanted to kill us. There were a ton of signs, No big realization until I became haunted by random anger attacks over childhood injustices, like her forcing me to destroy my art as a kid and my parents denying any wrongdoing on her end, but never allowing me any outlet for revenge because my mom was scared of her and made me be submissive to her every demand, all the time. Had to walk out of a Zootopia show today because I couldn't get it out of my head and I was breathing heavily. The reason I would categorize her as a grade A psycho is because she would actually pretend to be nice and use lies and manipulation, and had no guilt about any of this. I was about 16 when I finally refused to take the fall for something she did, even though I thought about it took me a long time to see how evil she was. She was great at painting herself as a victim who just had to have me say I did it because I supposedly wouldn't get in as much trouble.
Number 7.
The weirdest thing about my oldest brother was that he did not seem to realize when he was giving his plans away. He'd come home from a stint of homelessness and very kindly say, "Wow, cool headphones," and 2 nights later, after all the promises to turn his life around, he'd be gone, and so would my headphones. His sincere compliments became a pretty clear indicator of what he would steal later, and so we'd all hide whatever he admired. It's almost like he himself had no idea that he was going to rob us until it was happening. He physically abused the whole family, and we basically understood that he was a piece of shit. Maybe one with poor social skills, maybe one who was incredibly self-centered, maybe one with no empathy, but to get a real answer he would have had to see a professional, which he was unwilling to do. He was arrested for threatening to stab a homeless man. There was no evidence, no case, but my dad was going to get him a lawyer anyways, out of guilt for never being able to afford one for all his prior arrests. The case was dropped, thankfully, and as soon as he was released he gleefully told us all in the car that the charges had all been accurate. He was proud of himself. I think that's when it hit my dad. For me, it was when he literally hit my dad, repeatedly, with a phone, for trying to call the police. My dad refused to retaliate, just sat there sobbing. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.